Welcome to Stories of Friendship. I'm Morris, your host, and today I am joined by Marian. Marian, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Marian, and I am a mental wellness and transformation and empowerment coach. My business is Dream Life Transformation, and um, I'm so happy to be here.
I'm really happy to have you here. So thank you for joining me. I'm in Southern California, and Marian, you're in
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. So she's got a couple of hours ahead of me. It's 7:30 for me, but we're feeling good this morning. So Marian, tell me about friendship. Tell me about your journey of friendship right now. What does it mean to you?
Right now, friendship is really important to me. I have always wanted to be the person that has a close group of friends that we're really close and we do a lot of stuff together. And I didn't feel like I had that growing up. So now that I'm an adult, I'm starting to develop that and I'm exploring what friendship is and what it means and how to show up in it and how to be a good friend.
And when did that part start? Right? Because so you've always had friends, obviously, but when did you really start leaning into trying to discover what friendship actually is?
I think it started when I started to realize that I was very toxic myself. I was not a great friend. I was also not great at taking care of myself. I had a lot of mental health challenges. I was in toxic relationships. The people that were in my life, they had their stuff going on and there was like trauma bonding. And I also realized that I tended to be entitled and selfish in my relationships. So when I started to unpack that within myself and my relationship with my immediate family, and I started healing, I started kind of really exploring like, oh, sometimes I'm the problem.
Okay, and so there's a lot to unpack there because what I'm hearing is some self-awareness came into play to help you be a better friend. But tell me about that. How did who you were or who you allowed yourself to be kind of ruin friendships or not allow you to bond as closely as you would?
So there's a couple of things that was going on. I think the core issue was that I had difficulty trusting people. I was always expecting to be the butt of the joke. I was looking for the lie in what people were saying. I was like, what's your angle? What do you want? Like, why are you being nice to me? Like, where's the trick? So that was like kind of underlying every relationship, regardless of where it was in my life and who it was. And on top of that, I wanted to be rescued. I wanted somebody to come and like pick me up and put me back together. And that's not realistic. That doesn't actually happen. So in trying to do that, I was really depressed. And it can be really difficult to be friends with somebody who's really depressed and highly anxious because I was told, from time to time that, I take a lot of energy. I am an energy drain. I'm an energy suck. So it really does drag people down, the people around you, even if they really genuinely love you. It's hard to be there for that person who isn't doing what they can to pull themselves out of it.
These are friends giving you feedback and telling you
some of them were friends. Some of them were people that I was having relationships with, various types of intimate relationships with. But yeah, these were all people that were in my life in one way or another that I wanted to spend time with and be around and talk to.
and how was it receiving because look, this is good stuff. You're really coming on here and getting vulnerable and saying I was a problem. I had a trust problem and people are telling me I don't add value, I don't add energy, I'm actually taking it from people. So I want the audience to know that this is good. We need to do this kind of self-reflection and grow to establish better relationships. So how was it receiving that kind of feedback? Like that must have been hard.
It was, because I already felt really poorly about myself. And and being told that, it was just like, I can't do anything right. Like I wanted it's been so long that like remembering exactly where I was in that moment is a little bit tricky, but I do remember feeling frustrated that people that I wanted to like me were not liking me and treating me in the way that I wanted to be treated.
That's excellent insight. Okay, so you're feeling down, you're feeling beat up, and on top of that, you're supposed to find a way to fix yourself and make it all better. So how does that and look, you're a transformation coach now. So obviously you've done deep work to want to help others do the same. So how did you get started? Like from getting this feedback and realizing I have trust issues, how did you move from one step to the next?
It was almost like I was kind of just forced into it in a lot of ways. Just like life just kept falling apart. It was like one sort of crisis situation after another. A friend of mine actually at one point told me, like, you need therapy. You need therapy. And and that was around the time that my marriage was also kind of starting to fall apart. So I did go to therapy, and I went for one specific incident that had happened, but during that time, I kind of realized, I realized, oh, I have PTSD. I'm a perfectionist. What? No, I'm not. I'm minimizing all of these things that happened to me. Oh, it's not a big deal. Yeah, it was a big deal. So I was kind of starting to realize that there was a lot going on in me that I wasn't even fully aware of, even though I knew that there was problems. I had difficulty even using feeling words. My therapist would ask me, so how does that make you feel? And I would say, I feel like I want to cry. And she's like, but that's not a feeling. What's the actual feeling there? So I had to start.
Emotion? She wants you to use like a word that is an emotion.
Right. Yeah. So it really forced me to start examining my thought processes for myself, as well as how I use language and, identifying my actual feelings and really assessing, is this something that, am I minimizing this because it's really not a big deal, or am I minimizing this because I'm responding to trauma and I'm like, I don't want to be a problem. So, one thing that my therapist gave me is she gave me a journal, and she said, write down every negative thought that you have about yourself. And that transformed into a whole journaling process, but it really did make me very aware of the language that I was using towards myself. So a lot of things just kind of happened at once. I had to move out of my apartment, and that was a whole disaster. My relationship with my husband fell apart and we separated. I was spiraling constantly. I knew there was something wrong with me. And
where are your friends? So your marriage ends. Where are your friends?
My friends were, I was still like, I had friends, but I did not feel super, super close to all my friends. So there were a few people that I was talking to that didn't live locally, and their relationships and their lives were also kind of in chaos in their own ways. I was still local friends like that were really local to where I was living at the time. I didn't have a lot of those. I didn't have neighborhood friends, really. There were people I was starting to get to know, but nobody that I was real close with. And so most of the people that I was friends with at that time also had a lot of stuff going on, a lot of mental health stuff, a lot of life stuff. I found it very interesting at the time that some of our experiences just kind of mirrored each other's. So there wasn't a lot of support, and also I still didn't trust people, so I wasn't fully comfortable in opening up to family or friends, or really anybody about things that were going on, and except to kind of tell a story that it's like, it was more like I was relaying facts of events rather than my inner experience.
And obviously you're having trouble expressing emotion, and then you have the trust issue. So
Right.
it's like all stacking on top of each other. I don't want you to know what's really happening internally.
Yes, I was very afraid of being rejected. I had this kind of wall of ice kind of around me that I was very tense all the time and very concerned with what other people thought about me and how I was perceived and how I was presenting myself.
So hindsight's 2020, but looking back, do you think that if you could have closer relationships, do you think you would have spiraled as hard?
I think that's a difficult question to answer because I'm thinking about like how I kind of got into those situations, and really kind of it largely stemmed from a lack of trust in myself, you know, like I did not feel empowered in myself in my own life. So I didn't know what I wanted in general. And so I was kind of just, since the time that I was young, just not trusting of a lot of people and not trusting myself. And I didn't feel empowered to make my own decisions. And so I kind of kept making not great decisions, you know, throughout my life until it just kind of got to the point where it was either, you know, go home or keep falling apart. So I don't know. I think it would have depended if I had had a different type of friendship throughout my life where, you know, I had people that were empowering me and lifting me up and actually helping me make good decisions. People that I really felt like I could talk to, I may not have spiraled as hard because I wouldn't have made those same decisions that put me in those positions in the first place.
Okay, and I appreciate that honesty, right? Because again, for our audience, it's like you are giving us like this is wisdom. Like I really went through this, and I want them to hear what you think about going through it and now versus how it actually happened, obviously. So yeah, no, this is great. So at what point then? Because what I hear now is like everything's collapsing, and I'm trying to figure out me, which is it's great. Is friendship at this point as important to you as it is now? Like at that point in your life, did you value friendship like you would value it today?
No, I did not. I took everything in my life for granted. I remember feeling like, when's it going to be my turn? Like, why is it so much easier for all of these other people that I know? Like, I really, really, really believed that everybody had it so much better and so much easier than I did, and that everybody was so much further ahead in life. And I took everything that I had for granted. Like my parents, you know, I'm in my 20s and early 30s, and my parents were supporting me living all the way across on the other side of the state. They're financing my existence, and I took that for granted. So I was taking people in my life for granted also. So now I don't have that same mindset and mentality. I've recognized, you know, how entitled and ungrateful I was during that time, and now I'm like, wow, I was a brat. Like that was not cool. So I don't want to do that again. So I'm been working on actually being a good friend, being a good member of my community, my family, my social circle. And it's definitely a different experience and a different approach, because I'm not sure that I would be able to be friends with the people that I'm friends with now if I was still in that entitled and ungrateful space.
Okay, and for my ears here, I had to do the work on myself in order to either attract or maintain the quality and caliber of friendships that you have now.
Yes.
Because it's not all equal, right? That's the truth. not all friendships are baked equally in nature. Some people are just really good for us, and some people bring out bad traits in us or the worst of us. And I think that's just real reflection on our human interactions. So now you're saying, I've worked on myself, right? I've begun climbing. I've been repairing and fixing, and I was able to bond with people who bring the positive traits out, who look to the best of me. So tell me about that. Like, is that something that you intentionally looked out for, or is that I did this internal work and therefore I attracted the caliber because I received what I put out into the world?
So it's both. I set the intention, like, I wanted my tribe. I wanted my people. But I was also doing the work that allowed me to attract those people. So my current friends, I did meet when I was still in a really depressed and not in low space, but I had already moved home and I was already doing a lot of the work, and I was so much more self-aware. And they saw me when I was in my really depressed state, but I did not really express that exactly. They didn't even know that I had been married until I announced that I was divorced. So
Wow.
that was like years. They were like, I didn't know that. And part of me, sometimes I forget that these people didn't know me way back when. So that's part of it. But I also didn't want to be dumping my mental challenges onto my friends. I didn't know how they would react. I didn't want, like, there was like a lot of kind of uncertainty. It was that trust thing again. So I just didn't open up about that stuff, but we had the same hobbies, and we kept being in the same places, and I continued to work on myself. If I had not continued to work on myself during that time of initial meeting and up to now, then I don't know that we would have developed as close of a friendship as we have now. And it's still evolving. It's still developing. We're still getting closer to each other. So it is a little bit of both. And for a long time, I really kind of just felt like I was on the outside. I didn't feel like a full member. Like, I knew that they liked me. I knew that they invited me to stuff, but I still didn't feel like part of the family, so to speak. There were even times, like even just within the last couple years, where I was thinking like, oh, maybe these aren't my people. I need to maybe it's time for me to distance myself. I don't feel like we're on the same wavelength. And so I had to work through all of that. Like, there was still that barrier where I felt like an outsider, even when I was among all of these people.
Yeah, that's pretty intense, that the trust issue that you worked so hard to free yourself from, it still lingered a bit, right? And so now you're in this great group, but you're like, I don't know if they like me how I like them.
I just want to interject really quick, just how deep that trust issue has run in my life. I have a son, he's 19, and we have a very close relationship, but I have struggled in the past with, I felt like I was a terrible mother because, I'm raising this kid while I'm also dealing with all of these, mental health challenges. But maybe like a month or so ago, I was talking to him about that, right? And the question of, am I a good mother kind of came up, and he like, Mom, you're a great mom. I've told you this. I love you. I've told you this. What, did you not believe me? And I was like, oh, okay. And I realized that there was that I hadn't fully put it into words. I didn't realize that it was that deep until he said that. I was like, well, I don't really trust anybody. And he's like, you might want to talk to a therapist.
Like I've done, and you're still a work in progress, as we all are. But that's powerful, right? That you, even your own son, you're not confident and not trusting that he believes you were a good mother, right? You're looking for reassurance everywhere.
Right. And like, and that was actually a really good conversation because it really put into perspective just how much work I've done. And because honestly, when I really seriously started to work on myself, my relationship with my son got better and he started doing better just kind of in life. It's really interesting how when we work on ourselves, the people around us, also tend to improve. So it was a really good conversation and it really put into perspective just how much work I've done. But it was just so eye-opening to me to realize that thread was that deep inside of me that I didn't even believe my son fully until like he pointed it out. Like I was like just completely floored.
Yeah. Okay, so then you're backing out of this group, or you're trying. Your thoughts are winning a little bit, and you're like, I think I want to
be thinking about it. I wasn't taking any actual action towards it, but my thoughts were there.
And then what happens? Like, what happens between then? Because this is a little bit more recent, right? With this group, what happens between then and now?
So, our teacher died. Our martial arts teacher passed away, and some of them had known him for 15, 20 years, and I was still relatively new, having only been part of the group for 6 or 7 years. So he died and we came together for the memorial, and afterwards, there were some things that happened that I was totally unexpected. I was made a handmade, knife specifically for me, like by one of our friends. He made it and it was very personal, and I was given this. It was only given to like certain people, like his certain students. So I had no idea. So I was gifted this at the memorial and I was like, what? I was just completely like floored. And then afterwards, we went back to his house and his wife and his daughter and, our closest people were there. And I remember at one point sitting there looking around at like my friends in this room and, he wasn't there, but I remember looking, I'm like, oh, maybe these are my people. Wow. These are my friends. Like, what? This is my tribe. I found my tribe. Like, because they had always, even before this, they referred to me as sister. Like, yeah. I was considered part of the family. Like, they loved me and adored me. I just didn't fully see it. I didn't fully accept it. So kind of from that point on, his passing kind of pushed some of us together in different ways. So I started spending more time doing a girls' night where we cooked dinner with, 2 of the other members of our friend group, and of course showing up to different events that we do. So I just kept, pulling things in, suggesting we do something, inviting people to stuff, and just kept showing up and allowing myself to open up a little bit more at a time, and every time I do, I still feel like uncomfortable. Like there's still a part of me that's like, this is very uncomfortable. I feel kind of emotional. I don't like talking about this, even though I'm not saying anything weird. But it has been fine. Like I haven't felt in any way rejected, even though that's kind of like, that's a little bit of the anxiety about that.
Yeah.
So it's just been kind of a growing process just over the last, year or so, where I've realized that these are my people and I really can rely on them and I can trust them and they're not going to do anything. They're not going to hurt me. They're not going to do anything. They're some of the people that I feel the safest around. Actually. So it's just been quite an evolution.
And I'm so happy and proud of you because that sounds like a long journey with some pain, but also a lot of growth that that you went through to get to where you are now. So just beautiful sharing there. Okay, so tell me, right? You have this kind of core group of friends, and you would consider these close friends, best friends. Like I hear this is your tribe. What does that mean to you exactly?
I'm still defining that for myself to a certain extent. But I think that as far as, they're definitely close friends, closer friends. I feel like we're still getting to know each other, and we're still kind of testing the waters of, trust and friendship and, vulnerability on both sides, for sure, not just me. But I do feel like we are leaning into, starting to head into kind of more best friend territory a little bit. Like, definitely feels like family. I definitely feel comfortable when I'm around them. Very
I think
relaxed.
you mentioned you also express love, right? With this group.
Yes, we do. Like, we're always, we hug each other and we say, I love you and good to see you. And like, we actually talk about, things that are going on in our lives, even if it's not like, it's our conversations are not just, how are you? I'm good. How are you? It's, we do talk about more, deeper things, and we can talk about our different worldviews and our different thoughts and our experiences and our emotions, and it's fine.
Good, good. And do you find that now you're able to use like words that actually describe your emotion and like your current state of being with them? Is that something that's easier because you did all this work now?
Yes, it is definitely easier to at least internally identify what I'm feeling, even if I don't verbally express it. Like, I can be
Got it.
like, oh, I'm feeling something. What is it that I'm feeling? And then it's, whatever it is. And sometimes I can express that verbally. Sometimes I don't feel like I need to express it. It's not something I'm like, oh, I need to talk about this. But I do feel like, if I'm having a rough day, like, I do feel like, I can reach out. When I was dealing with my car, my car wrecked recently, and I was kind of in my feelings about this whole thing. So at some point I did reach out to them, like, I'm having a rough day. And they were like, what's going on? And I was able to talk about, like, well, my car wreck happened and this happened and that happened and this is going on. And it was just like nice to be able to vent a little bit. And it was fine. Like, it was good to have friends that I could do that with.
And how did they show up for you? So is it just that you were able to vent and get it off your chest, and that made you feel better? And obviously that's a deeper connection, because now I'm sharing what's happening internally. Like, I'm upset over this car and I just need to tell some friends and get this off my chest. But did they also show up for you in different ways? Did they come see you? Did they help you take care of travel? Did they say, hey, let's go out to dinner so you could feel better? Like, is there any other way that they showed up for you?
No, because I didn't really need those things at that time. It was just really nice to be able to talk. But I also feel like if I had said, hey, like, I don't want to be alone, like, can we hang out? We would have found the time, I'm sure of it.
Got it.
So, I was fortunate that I didn't have to borrow a car or like arrange transportation. Like, my parents have been very gracious and let me borrow one of their cars. So I didn't need that kind of support. But just being able to talk to them and say, oh my gosh, this is happening. That was just really good, and being validated and supported in that way.
Got it. So that's great. Now, so you have this core group. How important is it for you to make new friends? Are you the type of person that says, like, I have my tribe now, and this is what I need? Or are you kind of like, I like to explore new friendships and new potential for close relationships? Like, how does that look for you?
I'm really kind of always open to making friends. Like, if I'm talking to somebody, especially like another woman that's kind of in my age group that I feel like, oh, like, I like your vibe, I get a little bit excited and daydreaming, like, maybe we can be friends, like that, like, I love that idea. So I'm really, down to meet new people. I'm down to make new friends. I don't put a lot of pressure on, or I try not to. I'm going to say that. I try not to put like a lot of pressure on the idea of what I might and expectations on what a relationship might be. You know, I try to kind of let people get in where they fit in. And, you know, if that's a close friendship, that's great. If it's not, that's fine. If it's a close friendship for a little while and then we grow apart, you know, that's okay too. Just kind of letting people show up in whatever capacity works for them.
Okay, which I love that. I definitely value saying, let me allow this bond to form organically, and where it goes, it will go. But I also lean into intentionality as well, because I think that I don't want to set expectations as to what my friend has to look like, but I also have certain values and ways of being that I need to align with me a bit. So what does that, do you have those as well? Like, do you look at certain traits that somebody has to offer to determine if that's something that you actually want to pursue? Or because as we talked earlier in your story, you attracted friends that maybe didn't bring out the best side of you. So on the opposite side of that now, do you have traits that you look for in people that will complement who you are?
Kind of. It's not like anything that I sat down and like completely verbalized and said, you know, oh, I want people in my life that have this thing and that thing.
Yes.
It's kind of more about how do our personalities fit together? How do we get along?
Relationally, like I want somebody that meshes with me relationally.
Yeah, that's really important to me. And there are other aspects that are important to me. Kindness and compassion is really important to me. Just kind of in general, like treating the world and people and everything in it just with a certain level of respect and kindness. And then other aspects that kind of expand from that is, you know, political and spiritual beliefs. Like, I want us to kind of be on the same wavelength. Even if they're not exactly the same, do we, you know, value our values kind of similar along the same lines?
And I hear that. Like, I like that you talked about kindness, and those are the kind of traits that I'm talking about, right? So that's beautiful that you're able to express that. Now, that's interesting that you talk about politics and spirituality or religion, because I think I used to be on that wavelength of, I want you to like, if I'm a Christian, I want you to be a Christian. If I lean left or right, or if I'm going to vote this way, I kind of want you to have the same ideals and principles. Now I flipped, and I so value different perspectives. So if I find somebody who is on the opposite end of me, I think I'm even more intrigued by that person, especially if they have values that align with mine, but I find them at the opposite spectrum somehow. For me, it's an eye opener, right? It lets me see the world through a different lens. So tell me about how that looks for you and wanting to align with somebody that's the same.
So it's not so much that I want somebody that's like exactly the same. Because I do value different perspectives and learning about different things in different cultures. But the things that are most important to me kind of go back to kindness, compassion, and respect. So things like human rights and environmentalism and, you know, all of that stuff, to me, they're just so intrinsically intertwined. Like, regardless of where you fall, it's when you look at human rights and civil rights and LGBTQ rights and environmentalism and immigration and, you know, workers' rights and all of that, they're very intertwined to a point where people like to get so caught up in like one cause. And to me, like they're all equally important. So if you're somebody that kind of more aligns with the oppression of people, then I have a really hard time with that, because I am very much for an empowered people is a free people. I want people to be empowered in themselves, in their lives, and I want people to have a positive impact on the world and their communities and their countries. And so I'm most interested in people that are kind of on that same wavelength, you know, regardless of what their specifics are and how they want to see that. But, you know, it's not so much like are you a Republican or a Democrat or an independent or a libertarian. I mean, I definitely lean more liberal, but if there's somebody who is not liberal but definitely believes in, you know, uplifting people regardless of nationality or skin color or sexuality or all of that, then I'm going to be more inclined to, you know, be like, oh yeah, like we're on the same wavelength with that. So it's kind of like that kind of stuff is really important to me, because I really cannot, I don't like oppression. I don't like, you know.
And I love that honesty, because this, in our current, especially in America right now, we're so divided on these topics, and we do have people saying, I will not befriend you or I will not associate with you if you have differing beliefs than me. Like you're just wrong, or it's like we're incompatible if you believe differently than I believe. So like this is great and real insight, and I think it's powerful when we do open up our minds to the opposing views of our own. So just great insight. I appreciate that you're just open to share about that, because it's a sensitive topic and one that many of us struggle to breach, especially on a public forum.
Yes, I have learned recently that my face comes with subtitles, and I have very strong opinions, and it can be difficult for me to have a civil conversation with a certain demographic. But there's kind of nuance within that too, because, you know, somebody can make a decision and then be like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't have done that. I kind of want to, I don't know that I agree with that anymore. And then like that's in that place, I can have a conversation, but there is a certain line that I cannot, there are certain lines that I have a really hard time being open to hearing.
Yes. And I understand. I definitely understand. Where I am, I'm trying to, and it's hard, but I'm trying to be open to those opposing views and say, this isn't the whole person, right? This is just something that they've been raised in, or just like the way I see the world is how I grew up with the world and what I've encountered and learned. So I'm trying to get to where I can say, I will honor you because you're a human with perspectives just like I am. And then after that, the values that I receive from them will determine if I want to connect after that, right? Because I'm with you. Like I don't want to connect with somebody who can't do kindness, compassion, and who doesn't believe in like the human experience. We're all different human beings. So yeah, great insight. All right, so yeah, you've got. We talked about your close friend group, and we've talked about what friendship means to you. Do you? Because I'm big on using vocabulary that makes friendship important, and by that I mean I don't want to call everybody a friend. Everyone's not friend, and if I call you close friend, if I call you best friend, those designations carry weight. So if I don't call you friend, what do I call you? Is it acquaintance? Is it coworker, colleague, whatever it is? Do you kind of follow the same suit, or and has it always been that way?
So I honestly like haven't given a lot of thought to the different delineations of like, acquaintance, close friend, casual friend. Like I haven't like given a lot of thought to that specifically, but I definitely feel a difference between somebody who is, an acquaintance that I just see occasionally and we might chat about our lives but not get real deep, versus somebody that I can talk to about anything. So, you know, I don't really, but for the in between, like exactly what to label them, I haven't put any thought to that. I mean, I definitely kind of differentiate coworker from friend. Like that is a differentiation. I go to work at my day job and I'm really not there. I'm not there to make friends. If it happens, okay, but I'm there to do my job and get a paycheck and get out. I will be polite and I will be kind and I will be present, but I don't talk to people usually. Like, so I have that differentiation and, but outside of that, like just out in the world, I'm very much a homebody. I stay home a lot. I like my quiet alone time. So I'm not out and around people very much. The people that I actually talk to and spend time with are definitely people that I would consider more like a friend.
Got it.
I do have, online, I show up online on social media quite a bit, and I think those would be more casual friendships and acquaintances, largely for the people that I interact with the most, but maybe don't see in person, with maybe a few exceptions of people that I've actually like talked to on the phone for extended periods of time and really actually kind of gotten to know them.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's great insight. For me, it's just important because I want, like I said, if I say friend, I want it to be significant and to add value to somebody that I would say, hey, you are my friend. I don't want it watered down. That's right. That's the reason it's important to me, really, and it's not because I'm like an elitist and I'm like, you're not good enough to be in this close friend or whatever it is. It's just because I want it to carry significance and weight. All right. So what nugget would you give to the audience about friendship, like based on your whole story of having to really work on yourself and transform and learn to trust, and then where you are now and discovering what friendship really is, because you're still on this journey of what is friendship to me? What would you give to the audience?
Accountability, I feel like, is really, really important. Being able to hold yourself accountable and be held accountable by other people without taking it personally and without feeling rejected. So that's owning to our mistakes. That's apologizing. That's doing what we can to make things right, without taking unnecessary blame. Like, you can hold yourself accountable for your part in it, but you can also, that doesn't mean that it's all your fault or all your responsibility. You can also be like, okay, yes, this is where I was at and this is what I did. And, you can assess that and be like, I could have done this, this, and this. So next time, this is, how I want to do it. But also, you don't want to take so much blame on that the other person is not being held accountable. It's a two-way street. Everybody has to take responsibility, and being able to communicate that without tearing somebody down and without attacking people. I feel like communication and accountability, paired with the kindness, compassion, and respect is kind of the basis for building a solid relationship, a solid friendship, even if it's just a more casual acquaintance. You kind of, that baseline speaks more to your integrity than it does to how anybody else responds to you. And so I think that's the most important and when you show up that way, people are more likely to be like that with you. They're more open to you. They're more receptive. And it's a lot easier to connect.
Beautifully stated. That's so good. And we don't use, I feel like we don't use accountability a lot in the language of our platonic relationships. So it's gold. So I really hope the audience enjoyed that one. All right, Marian. So tell us about where we can find you on social media. Do you have a website? Did you write a book? Do you do podcasts? Tell us about that.
So I have a website, dreamlifetransformation.com. That's for my business. I have a blog that I recently started that I share on there. I also have a newsletter, and if you sign up for the newsletter, you get my free workbook, which is Create Your Dream Life. You can find me on Facebook, Blue Sky, TikTok, and YouTube as Dream Life Transformation. And you can find me on Blue Sky and Facebook and Instagram as Marian Scales.
Okay, and I will make sure I link all of those so it's easy for the audience to find you as well. Marian, thank you so much for joining me on Stories of Friendship. We will see Marian sometime again in the future so that we can catch up with her as she's defining friendship in her life. Marian, thank you again for being on, and everybody take care for now.
Thank you so much.